John is living in exile. It is the late 1st century, and as a political and religious outcast, he has been banished to Patmos, a rugged, isolated island in the Aegean Sea. He describes himself simply as a companion in tribulation. On a specific Sunday, which he calls the Lord's Day, he falls into a contemplative state. He writes that he is in the Spirit, surrounded by the quiet of his physical isolation. That quiet is abruptly shattered. From directly behind him, a voice rips through the air. John notes that the sound possesses the intense, blaring volume of a war trumpet. This diagram illustrates the voice's absolute claim over the nature of time itself. I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. It claims to encompass the beginning, the ending, and every moment in between. In an instant, the boundaries of John's physical imprisonment dissolve. The remote, rocky shores of his exile are overtaken by a sudden, overpowering cosmic presence. He immediately physically pivots to trace the source of this immense sound. He turns completely around. The first thing his eyes register in this new orientation is an arrangement of objects, 7 golden candlesticks standing in the space before him. Then the scale of the vision shifts. Standing squarely in the center of those 7 candlesticks is a towering figure. The figure is dressed deliberately, draped in a full-length robe that reaches all the way down to the feet and cinched tightly across the chest with a solid golden belt. John repeatedly relies on the phrase, like unto. He reaches for familiar, earthly reference points, like the Son of Man, to translate an entity that defies standard human biology. The anatomical details escalate rapidly. He observes the entity's head and hair radiating a blinding white, comparing the color to wool and pure snow. Moving down to the eyes, the description becomes lethal. The entity's gaze is not depicted as human, but as blazing flames of fire projecting outward. The physical weight of the figure is anchored by its feet, which glow intensely. John compares them to fine brass that has been superheated inside a furnace. As the figure speaks, the auditory experience compounds. The sound expands from the blast of a single trumpet into the continuous crash of massive waterfalls and rushing oceans. In its right hand, the entity holds an impossible scale of mass. Suspended there, entirely within its grip, are 7 distinct glowing stars. The sensory overload reaches its peak with the most jarring detail of all. Protruding directly outward from the entity's mouth is a sharp, 2-edged sword. The entirety of the figure's face radiates with the blistering, unfiltered strength of the sun. The volume of this visual and auditory data exceeds the limits of human biology. Faced with an input his nervous system cannot process, John collapses, falling at the entity's feet as though he were dead. At the height of this physical paralysis, the blazing figure reaches down. It places that precise right hand, the one holding the stars, directly onto John. The entity speaks a direct command that cuts through the terror. Fear not. It outlines a paradox. The figure declares itself the first and the last, an entity that experienced actual physical death, but is now alive forevermore. This conceptual visualization shows the ultimate jurisdiction claimed by the figure. Because of its survival, it states that it possesses the literal keys of hell and of death, securing authority over mortality itself. John's collapse into a death-like state is met by the physical touch of an entity that claims to have already survived the grave. The terrifying scale of the fire and the sword now validates the authority of the hand that pulls him back to his feet. With John revived, the entity issues a mandate. He is tasked with writing down everything he has just seen, the things that currently are, and the events that will follow. The imagery is then explicitly decoded. The 7 stars held in the right hand are directly identified as the angels or messengers of the churches. Next, the 7 golden candlesticks are demystified. They represent 7 actual churches, including places like Ephesus, anchoring the prophecy to real-world locations. This map of the ancient Roman province of Asia highlights the network of 7 historical congregations. The message was destined for these real populations. Patmos's isolation is ended. John is no longer a prisoner, but a recorder destined for cities across the sea. The text concludes by tethering its surreal imagery to the actual cities of the Roman province. A sequence that began with a sword-bearing entity and a roar like a waterfall ends as a series of letters addressed to specific people in the province of Asia.